there. You're listening to the Outsourcing Hub podcast, the pod that brings you anything and everything about building great teams in outsourcing. And we promise to share infinite opportunities, news, updates, and trends in the industry. Hosted by the Vice President of Sales and Marketing at Infinit-O, Mike Gunyon.
Hi, once again, this is Mike Gunyon, hosting the podcast for Infinit-O and always trying to take a deeper look into the value and lessons learned from outsourcing. Today, I'm joined by Flo Lenoir, Head of People Operations in our digital transformation for Infinit-O. So welcome, Flo, and actually welcome to the new year.
Happy New Year, Mike.
Happy New Year, Flo. It's been a kind of a great journey in 2022. Looking forward to 2023, as I'm sure you are. It's a mark of new beginnings, and as we like to say around here, endless opportunities. I'm really happy to have this podcast as it's an opportunity to share outsourcing insights and learn more about feedback from both internal leaders like yourself, as well as sometimes bringing clients into the picture to hear from them about some of the value that we can bring and what challenges they face. So today we're going to be looking at a little deeper dive into automation and some of the lessons we might learn, not just from successes, but from failures, really focused here. In the end, it helps us to collaborate with clients and others so they can run their business more efficiently, they can scale, and hopefully advance their brand. And we'd like to be a part of that so that it provides a strategic advantage. So as I said, in this episode, we'll talk about failures. Dealing with failures not easy, but it's also crucial to understanding those failures in order to drive success. So like many companies, Infinit-O is refocusing for 2023. And as one of our elements to achieve our goals, we always look at digital transformation, I always love how you say doing more with less. As an example, we spent a lot of time in this 2022 in sales and marketing automation, kind of my group. And we've done lots of experimentation with inbound and outbound tools, technologies, automations, and so forth, sales enablement activities. And like everything, some of them worked well and some haven't panned out as we would have expected. But each failure teaches us a lesson, helps us to get better at what we do. So I think each digital transformation seems to be unique, but guided by some common principles. So today, bringing in our expert, Flo Lenoir, once again. So Flo will talk about maybe some lessons learned and why some digital transformations fail. So let's go back to the basics first and let Flo do some of the talking. What is digital transformation once again? And how do companies tend to integrate that big concept into their business operations? Thanks, Flo.
Thanks, Mike. And welcome back. I hope you enjoyed the break. It's a new year ahead, and we're definitely super excited to be embarking on this new year, this new journey, and make sure that we keep delivering on our effort to transform and make our business evolve. And you touch on a very big point on the link between digital transformation and business operation. I think when we talk about digital transformation, we often refer to it as a work culture. It's a mindset built around the implementation of areas of efficiency across the business. It's often leveraging on specific technologies to facilitate automation and digitization.
Mm-hmm.
Digital transformation puts process excellence at the center of any evolution or revolution that needs to take place within an organization. We often refer to it as a journey of process mapping, process reengineering, process improvement, And it really evolves around how we understand the processes that we have today, why we do what we do, and how we get to make them better. If business processes are broken or non-existent, the business often suffers and fails. If the processes on the other end are strong and well documented, it affords an opportunity for continuous improvement and process improvement. Again, rethinking why we do what we do, and then transform it in a way that makes it more relevant to the environment we're in, to the reality that we're facing. And that's why it's so important to always challenge the status quo and then rethink what we're doing. Now, we know from experience that organizations that embrace process excellence view every business process as an asset, one that can be owned, managed, maintained, governed, and obviously improved. And so those organizations will build improvement into everything they do, such as, again, identifying, codifying, mapping, reviewing, re-engineering, updating the way things are done across the organization. Again, challenging the status quo and making sure that they get to have a complete approach of the end-to-end process management. And this is, again, what transformation is about. And this is why often it's important for companies to integrate this to their business operations.
Mm-hmm. And it makes great sense. And I think that for many businesses that I come in contact with, there's a recognition of the need to evolve, build automation and other type of digital transformation into the business. But there still are lingering concerns because of the legacy businesses often have little to, if any, automation, for example, as an example of a digital transformation. And so therefore the gravity of a failure might be seen as sort of a reason not to take things forward. So there is a level of not uncertainty, but a level of questioning, I think, within some organizations as to, is it the right thing to do? Will we lose control, or what will change as a result? And so as we talk about the importance of success, there's also the value of failure and the lessons that failures can teach us, not just in a department, for example, but overall as a business and a culture. So, we could talk a lot about culture. I know you're all about people and as well, but why do you think digital transformations sometimes fail?
I think it's important to bounce back on the idea that you had about lesson, right? And I think Nelson Mandela once said that I never lose, I either win or I learn. And these words are words that we live by as an organization, and they're very much applicable to failure in general. We never fail, we either succeed or we learn. Failure is just an opportunity to try again with more knowledge that we didn't have before. And I think that's a key element here, to go back to your question about why some organization would feel so reluctant in opting for changes and sometimes would give up after a few trials. I think failure is the most underappreciated reason that companies are going by when it comes to experiencing setback. So often the main challenges is that they want to go too big, too fast. There's a learning curve for digital transformation, and most companies need to walk before they can run. The key is to start with modernization efforts that don't necessarily transform the business and much less create a new one, but which create the capacity to succeed in more ambitious efforts later on. All right, it's no secret that, again, most digital transformations and digital transformation initiatives will likely fail. Various studies from academics, consultant, analytics, they all indicate the same thing. They indicate that the rate of digital transformation failing to meet their original objectives usually ranges from 70 to 95%. That means that there's an average of 87.5% of all digital transformation initiatives that will fail before we get to have successful ones. And yet, digital transformation has been at the top of corporate agendas for at least a decade, and it shows no sign of slowing down. If anything, everything got accelerated with COVID and now inflation. So we are seeing that more and more there's a need for speed for digital transformation. So in this digital era, more and more businesses and industries are automating their workflows and operation. And for some, they tend to think that indeed automation is a costly effort. They're witnessing early adopters all over them that are outperforming them, especially in the automation, the robotic process automation space. And they can see that other organizations are benefiting from greater ROI than they are doing. So it becomes then crucial to understand why some of those initiatives would fail. And again, we mentioned that often number one reason why initiatives would fail is because we tend to be over optimistic in our expectations of both timing and scope of what the outcome should be, right? We think that it's like waving a magic wand. There's 99.9 chances again that any project will take longer and end up being more expensive than initially planned. And that's just because, again, you need to accumulate some knowledge. There's a lot of unknown when you venture into automation. You can only have assumptions of the benefit that everything is going to that the automation is going to bring to your organization, but you may not know exactly and precisely what it's going to be required in the journey and how long that journey is going to take. So the first aspect is, again, being over optimistic. The second aspect is more on execution. Often there's again learning curve to be able to get to the proper governance, to be able to prioritize efficiently and effectively technology deployment and understand the adoption level across the organization, understand also the types of metrics that need to be put in place. And it's very likely that we start with the wrong metrics before we get to the right one. So there's a need to find the proper prioritization framework and governance framework to be able to pilot effectively transformation initiatives. And then finally, and then probably the least appreciated, the third hurdle that we tend to go through is the pace of leading and managing the transition and the transformation across the organization. How do we balance old and new? And the reality with transformation is that you need to make sure that you have a certain level of continuity to be able to change effectively. So it's the most interesting one because, again, if you have just too much continuity and not enough change, there's a status quo, and that isn't a space for innovation. If there's too many changes happening at the same time and not enough continuity, people tend to get lost and would then fear changes more than they will embrace it. So those three reasons, again, the being over optimistic, having challenges with execution, not having a proper prioritization and governance structure, and finally, not being able to manage continuity and change. Those three reasons are, for me, the most important reason why companies would tend to fail. But again, we never fail. We just either succeed or learn. So as long as you conceive failure as an opportunity to try again with more knowledge and do better, then you're on the way. You're already halfway there through digital transformation.
Mm-hmm. And it makes sense that you're talking about really being able to build sort of an executable plan that takes in a lot more than just what you might think of on the surface. Going all the way through that most interesting hurdle is really, again, getting a little bit back into culture setting, properly setting and handling cultural expectations within the business, if not operational expectations. So, and you can see if any of those don't work out, then you could be looking at a failure or an opportunity to learn, both near term and hopefully long term doing better. Clearly, the future of work is here. And as you said, this has been on the plate of senior executives for a decade now. So it's the reality, right? And as we see in so many of our clients in the innovation space that we work so closely with them, that's how they've made their hallmarks. In many of those cases, they've productized their innovations and their technological advances, et cetera. So while things are still evolving, despite failures, digital transformation is here to stay and will continue. And it's a matter of if not when. So why do you think it might be in particular, digital transformation important or let's call it essential to scaling companies, those companies that are just leaping forward and having trouble perhaps keeping up with the pace, or they want to grow fast but intelligently?
Digital transformation impacts or can impact anyone and everyone, any function and every function in an organization. And being able to scale effectively means that companies are able to implement many initiatives and digital transformation initiatives across the business, not just from a customer service perspective, but potentially also on the finance side, on the human resources side, maybe with the offboarding, on the sales and marketing side, as you mentioned. So every function can benefit from digital transformation. And often what we are seeing is that it really starts obviously from the top of the organization with senior leaders that would need to be aware of that learning curve that I was referring to, and the importance to go through first modernizing the existing processes that we have, then reshaping the existing processes and the rest of the business, and then consider then a third step that would really be around creating something radically new, maybe a new business or a new product, a new feature, a new way of totally new way of doing things, because that's where for sure most of the value is going to come from. But again, we got to walk before we run. And what is I believe interesting to notice here is that often it starts with gaining confidence and being able to understand the level of sophistication, the level of ability that a team would have to get there and to be able to scale effectively. We would need the team to pick up a lot of the new skills that are now so paramount and so talked about in actually any industry. But again, once the team is ready to kind of pick up the pace, the modernization can really happen. And again, it's really about simplifying and digitizing existing processes and functions. And again, on the customer experience perspective, it can be about designing new apps, new features, new way to interact, a new way to take calls. For example, on the outsourcing business, it could be on ways to handle multiple languages. It could be about ensuring that all the metrics, such as handling time and or chat services, are actually performing more efficiently, and facilitating maybe even self-service touch points. For operation, it can be about connecting new products, re-engineering core processes. On the employee experience, as I mentioned, it can be around automating some of the HR processes, making sure that communications are automatically triggered, so that there's a better knowledge and a better information, better engagement created across the organization. So those steps are actually fairly easy to take on. They start with, again, basic exercise of doing the process mapping and picking up areas where quick wins, right? Areas where some sort of transformation, some sort of maybe new technology, but easy to handle technology would be used to then create that level of efficiency that we want. And then to be able to scale, then again, that's when we can start effectively the transformation by looking at cross-functional processes, looking at complex cross-value change effort. And again, in this case, it could be a sales to order, like a sales order processing. It could be again a vendor onboarding. Could be even lead generation and how we make sure that everything gets shared across. Could be invoicing. Again, all those typical processes that every organization would have, but eventually would always want to know how to do better, faster, and more accurately. And then eventually, it's once we have modernized the business, once we have effectively transformed the business, then that's when you can really scale, and you can scale by sometimes doing everything yourself. That's one option, although that can be very costly and time consuming and not dedicated, not a core function of a business, but it's also easier to actually scale with the right partners. And in that way, we can consider working with, again, low-code, no-code platforms. We can work with organization like ours that would consider that it's not just about people anymore, it's actually people and technology. And so we can make sure that we bring that technology layer in addition to the people that we typically work with. And again, it can be sometimes even just a completely new business, a new opportunity that can be uncovered from that scaling initiative. So there's real value in being able to again make sure that there's no stone unturned in the organization. Make sure that it starts from the top, but then it's spread through the organization by having the team leaders, by having the managers, by having the opportunity for every manager and team members to get involved in that process of changing the business by uncovering new opportunities, by giving them the tools to effectively transform so that they can do it yourself and decentralize that effort rather than just centralize it.
So to kind of recap, it sounded like Flo, that three primary steps there are overall modernization. So you want to modernize, be prepared before you can transform. And then you can perhaps have the capability to do all that by yourselves or with a partner, but scaling with the right partner seems to be a big part of it, right? The right type of leadership, as you've mentioned before, within a business to be able to facilitate all this happening, to have the vision and leadership. An example I have of that is had a great conversation with the CIO yesterday of a very fast growing company. And they just frankly are having difficulty keeping up with their customer care contact center. And it's not just a matter of hiring more and more agents to handle the phones and the chat and the text and the social media contacts, but he has the vision to want to look beyond scaling with just people. And so what we're talking about is what you just described, the ability to modernize and document and think out of the box on processes, and then also the commitment to transform using bots and other standard kind of CX oriented tools. But there's tools and then there's process, right? What do you do with the tools once you have them? That's where we come in. So when I think about that example and what you just said is scaling with the right partner, that's a great way to really accelerate and catalyze this sort of experience, which can therefore then transform the business, so some really good examples that we're working with on a daily basis that you and your team have been able to make a reality. So I'm going to go back to this early concept of, okay, if a company wants to get started or move forward, or they're stalled with their digital transformation, do you think you could articulate those basic steps once again, so that folks know that, of course, we're here to help because that's what we do, but also for them to think about what are the steps, if you don't mind?
Absolutely. And I think before I start, I would probably mention a disclaimer, is that going through digital transformation is like baking an apple pie. Everybody loves apple pies, but everybody likes it slightly different. They all like it in their own way. We all have own favorite recipe for apple pie, but they may never be the same. The key question here is really about what's the apple pie that you want for your organization, and eventually from there, what's the recipe, what's the right ingredients to put together. So the steps that I'm going to mention are the ones that, again, make sense for our own apple pie, but you can easily twist it and adjust it to the reality of the business that you're in, so that you can cook and prepare your own apple pie. So for us, what makes sense and what the basic steps are would really be, number one, to make sure we're ready for success, make sure that we have the support of the leadership team, that we create clear ownership, that we are able to set strategic directions. What does it mean to achieve digital transformation in the organization? Make sure that we have the proper frameworks. I talked about governance earlier, prioritization frameworks. I think those are very important to understand how to effectively, again, set yourself for success, and dedicate enough resources as part of the first step is definitely important. And then it's getting everybody excited about it. Again, what does success look like? How do we communicate? How do we engage? How do we get individuals to be part of the process, so that it's not just a top-to-bottom approach, but something much wider and bigger for the benefit of the organization? Again, number one, set yourself for success. Number two, start by doing the inventory of what you have and then prioritize. As we talked about, it's modernization first. So all progress takes place outside of our comfort zone. It's important that we don't keep doing the same thing, expecting different results. That would be the definition of Einstein for insanity. And so again, how do we start changing the input, so that the output can be different? So we make the inventory of the processes, we map them, we then get to prioritize based on impact. And step three, we start small and we share the wins. So as you mentioned earlier, you start with your own department. You start within the area that you control, so that you get to understand the impact that you create. You start with baby steps. You understand the impact that it creates. You document it. And once you have been able to identify the processes that are really ripe for automation, and that's the moment where you really start taking step forward and see measurable value of what you create. So again, first 3 steps: set yourself for success, do the inventory of the processes you have and prioritize, and then start small and share some wins, right? Communicate every win that you have, communicate it with the rest of the organization, because everybody wants to know that it works. Step 4, find the right technology for your job. So that's where, again, you can try to do it internally, you can try to do it externally, you can work with the right partners, create the right level of collaborations so that you get to easily and effectively change the processes that you have, and then start really looking into cross-functional processes, right? Make sure that while you decentralize the effort and get everybody involved, you also have a way to centralize all documentation so that anybody can actually benefit from visiting a knowledge base, visiting dashboards with metrics. Everybody gets to use the same core pieces of technology and software that would be needed to have those visualizations and those dashboards that help the company understand what, again, the benefits that is being used. So find the right platform that everybody can use and make sure that there's enough training and learning. So again, step 4, find the right tech for the job.
Mm-hmm.
Step 5, and I promised there would only be 6 steps overall. But step 5.
But in reality, it's a journey. So there's probably more than 6 steps in between each of those. So
yeah, it's your apple pie. So
mm-hmm.
If you like your apple pie with vanilla ice cream, then you probably want to do the rest.
See, I knew you were a baking guy. I knew you liked your sweets.
Absolutely.
I love apple pie, by the way.
Definitely one of the best, classic.
Mm-hmm.
Step 5, once you have the tools in place, then track the value, share best practices. Again, you've been able to centralize and all documentation and all the tools that needs to be used. Now you can leverage on the data you create to track the value and share best practices. So you can then see if each of the processes that you've ventured in transforming have been able to show an increase in productivity, have been able to improve customer service, have been able to facilitate logistics. You can also see if your team members are spending less time on all the tasks that tend to be routine, tedious, repetitive, manually done. So you can start measuring that value. You can see if you're able also to leverage on the training that you do for everybody to pick up the pace. And eventually, from all that data that you collect, can you say that you create some efficiency gain, maybe even save some money across processes that have now been automated and re-engineered? So tracking that value and again sharing that information across the organization is definitely valuable. And then finally, you mentioned that it's a journey. A journey never really ends. So keep optimizing, optimize. So what, again, it's progress over perfection. It's process improvement, which is a journey that requires constant optimization. You have to make sure that you have a way to go back to what you do. Again, keep asking why you do what you do. And as you gain better knowledge and understanding of how to do things in an automated manner, you will go back to all the initial processes that you automated and realize that there are ways to make them even better. And that's when you can really encourage every participant to the journey to continuously look at ways to improve their processes. See what works. Again, you share best practices to see what works in other departments, import it to your own. See what works in a specific scenario and make sure and see if you can leverage it for yourself. Let's see if you can maybe understand or break down the automation and how the automation was implemented, and then from there pick the pieces that make sense and are relevant for you, and again build that mindset of process excellence at every level, but always by, again, sharing best practices, sharing the impact, being able to present the value that is created so that people stay engaged. So again, number one, set yourself up for success. Number two, do the inventory and prioritize. Number three, start small, share the wins already, small wins, quick wins. Step four, find the right technology that you need for the job. Step five, track the value and share the best practices. And finally, keep optimizing. But to recap, digital transformation is inevitable. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. That's what you said earlier, and I completely agree with that. And then eventually, how effectively are we able to transform?
Great. There's so much to take in there, but I love that you recapped the key steps and how much is dependent on, from executive sponsorship all the way through to sharing the wins across the organization, and not just the wins, but the key learnings from things that don't go as well, which is most likely to happen because, like you said, progress over perfection is really the reality and the goal. So now we've talked about a lot about the journey that a company can go through, how to go about it, what are the basic and primary steps. But this is a core competency of Infinit-O's now, where we help to steer and work with our clients on and facilitate their digital transformation journeys. So there are other companies that do things in different ways that, like are really focused on large scale enterprise level automation, for example. So how can Infinit-O help them differently, perhaps, or what makes us different as we partner with our clients and new clients, clients to be? What makes us different, and what do we do that helps them to facilitate their journey?
At Infinit-O, we really are consistent in the message that we deliver about creating value, which has always been part of our DNA. So we like to offer our clients ways to scale their businesses by adding value, not just by being an additional line item on their P&L or anything like this. We're not just a cost center. What we are is a partner that helps understand how to navigate through all those changes that we're facing today. So for fast-growing companies, there are many other priorities to focus on than automation often. Automation is critical to the business that our partners would have, but they cannot do everything at once. So they need a trusted partner to kind of take on and outsource that automation effort so that they can focus on what is core to the business. So that's why, again, if you go back to the example of the contact center, it's no longer just people, but it's people and technology. The logic is, how do we improve the efficiency of our teams to deliver customer service to our partners so that they can focus on developing their own app, for example. So we see that a lot. And again, it's the core DNA, it's the core objective that we've always had as an organization. That hasn't changed. The way we do it has changed because we started introducing technology a few years ago, and now we have solutions that can really facilitate the work that our partners are doing. It's also, again, it's still about people, so it's important that we also manage to offer developmental paths for growth for our team members. And with digital transformation, we can help them gain the ability to learn new digital skills and put these skills to work. So it's not just theoretical, it's actually practice and again, failure and learning and improvement. And they get to take more advanced tasks as they get to learn and automate initial tasks that they were doing. They get to create and add more value. And again, that's allowed them to be ready for the future of work. And for us, it's the world is in motion and we're moving along with it. So our industry, the outsourcing industry, just like any other industry, is facing major changes, new ways of working, new ways of operating. And we're lucky that we got a head start. Innovation has always been part of our commitments to our clients since 2005. And for the past few years, we've been very intentional about our digital transformation initiatives, right? We evaluate that we've been able to save more than 6 million minutes across all the different processes that we were able to automate. It's more than $1,300,000 in productivity gains, right? And 70% of which was generated over the last 12 months only. So we can really see the speed and the scalability that we operate with now. We have the infrastructure and the expertise to create successful digital transformation for our partners. So in this sense, and to go back to the main topic of this podcast, it's all about failure and how much you learn from it. The beauty is, like, we already failed for our partners. Mm-hmm. And so we learn a lot from it. And this is what we just want to implement, and all that learning, all that expertise that we were able to develop, we want to re-inject that into the business of our partners and make sure that, again, given that you need 10 ideas, 7 bad, 2 okays, and 1 really good, to be able to get to that one idea that really going to make a difference and create impact. We want to make sure that we're able to take on all 10 ideas, pick up the right one, and then implement that to the next partner that we work with. And we take on the end-to-end process management to, again, make sure that companies can skip failures and focus on generating more and more successes across the board.
Thank you, Flo. I think that this has been a very enlightening discussion that we've had today. We've talked about the idea of failure and the value of failure, of going through any kind of a journey, but digital transformation in particular, the importance of the learning lessons and taking the value of those lessons learned and reapplying them. The idea of what are the key elements of a digital transformation journey to scaling companies, in particular, with modernize, transform, and scale. And then what I think's most important is those key steps. How do you get off the dime or move forward intelligently with those primary and basic steps? And for us, having gone through the journey and working with so many different clients on their journey, we, I think, are uniquely positioned for our market to assist and facilitate that path, that successful journey. So really thank you, Flo, for joining us once again today. And thank you to everyone for tuning into the podcast in this episode. And as you probably getting used to hearing, please contact us at info@infinit-O.com, or just look on our website, infinit-O.com. So until next time, thank you, Flo.
Thank you, Mike. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Yeah, it's going to be a great 2023. And to the audience out there, thank you very much for tuning in and listening. And I look forward to you reaching out to us. Thank you so much.
And that has been the Outsourcing Hub podcast, building great teams with Mike Ganu. Thank you for tuning in. And always remember, start small, exceed expectations. Think infinitely. Think Infinit-O.